Moses Itauma is a serious problem in the heavyweight division. We're talking about one of the most raved about young heavyweights in the sport right now. We've heard crazy sparring stories of him against other big names. Not to mention he's also been deemed as the next Mike Tyson, which is a pretty bold claim. We've heard and seen nothing but promising things from this great young fighter. But how good is he? Well, in today's video, we're going to look into a few things about Moses Itauma. We're going to break down his style, skills and abilities, what's next for him, and talk about his career upcoming and what to expect from Moses Itauma. Well, we just witnessed Moses Itauma completely dominate Dillian Whyte in a fight that was supposed to be his biggest step up. A highly anticipated bout to kind of test Itauma's abilities and see if he's really as good as people are making out. Considering Dillian Whyte has been a top contender for some years now and has faced the highest level of competition, but it's safe to say this wasn't close nor competitive. And in fact, Itauma easily brushed through Dillian Whyte within 2 minutes. Now, there's a lot of takeaways from that performance. First of all, with Dillian Whyte. Now, the whole selling point was Dillian Whyte's in his best shape. Dillian Whyte is never been this slim before. But when I was watching the fight and build up, it did not look like Dillian Whyte wanted to be there. I'm not gonna lie. Regardless though, we have to understand that Dillian Whyte is also 38 years old, way past his prime, and has been knocked out by multiple different people. But looking past all that, he's still a massively experienced vet in the game, still dangerous, and is still a massive step up. Now, whether he wanted to be there or not is a different question, because there's a lot of speculation saying that he just wanted one last payday and that was it. But I don't know if that's really the case. But let's not take that away from Moses Itauma's performance, because there's a lot we can take from his side. Now, just quickly breaking this fight down, Moses came out pretty cautious, obviously understanding that this is Dillian Whyte, his biggest step up, and he's still dangerous. But Itauma instantly took control of the fight, controlling the ring, picking Dillian Whyte apart with great shots, having great lead hand control, having some nice level changing shots, and was able to pick up quite quickly on Dillian Whyte's tendency to drop his head, which got Dillian Whyte caught with some big shots, where Moses Itauma instantly started applying pressure, and from then it was over. Moses Itauma went for the kill, dropped Dillian Whyte, and Dillian Whyte was never able to recover, and the fight was called off. Now, I will say this fight has definitely put him on the radar for sure for all these big names, and I personally think this fight has took him from prospect to contender, and I was very impressed from the things I saw in that fight, just as well as some of the things I've seen in his previous fights. Now, let me just put this one thing out there. Moses Itauma is only 20 years old, which is pretty scary to think, because having this kind of skill level and comfort in the heavyweight division is something we don't see too often from someone who's only 20 years old. And that's why I say he could really be a problem in the heavyweight division and go on to be great. And I was really impressed with some of the high IQ moves that I've seen from Itauma, especially some of the experienced vet moves that he pulls out. Despite being young, I see a lot of high level stuff from this kid, in particular his level changing shots and his lead hand control. You partner that skill with his explosive knockout power and you have a recipe for disaster. Now, I've noticed in a lot of Itauma fights that he tends to work off his jab a lot, whether that's his body jabs or his lead hand control, which is a very high IQ move, especially for heavyweights, and we don't tend to see a lot of heavyweights make use of their lead hand because they tend to just look for that one big shot. However, Moses, on the other hand, tends to set up his big power punches up pretty nicely. And yes, we did just see a first round knockout with Dillian Whyte, but in a way he fights quite patiently. He waits for those openings and then capitalizes on them, which is a very smart style of fighting for a young 20-year-old fighter. But what makes Moses Itauma special? Well, in my opinion, there's this one trait that he has that a lot of the great heavyweights share and have in common. Now, what is that one thing, you may ask? His movement. Now, a lot of you may not understand that, so let me elaborate. Let's look at great heavyweights like Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Alexander Usyk. What's one thing they all have in common? Exceptional movement. They don't move like heavyweights. They move like middleweights. Their movement is so fluid, their footwork so elusive, and when they box, they don't look like fighters that weigh more than 200 pounds. And that is one trait that I believe Moses Itauma shares with these great fighters. When I watched his last fight, the one thing I noticed and said was, he moves like a middleweight. When watching him fight, he doesn't look like some of the other big, clunky heavyweights that you may see nowadays. He seems extremely sharp, extremely fluid with his movement, and that's the kind of thing that makes Alexander Usyk so dangerous in today's heavyweight division. And it's the reason that he was able to dominate all of these top names. Now, I might sound crazy, but that's a trait that I think Moses Itauma definitely looks like he has. It's like giving a heavyweight the speed and footwork of a middleweight, and that's just dangerous. ridiculous. But what's actually next for Moses Itauma? Well, I'm not sure if you guys watched the fight or you didn't, but at the end of the fight, the crowd was calling out that they wanted to see Usyk versus Moses Itauma. Now, here's my opinion on this one. Now, I would love to see that fight, but I don't think it's a smart fight for Itauma to take. Now, for some reason, I actually think that would be a fairly competitive fight. I just think it's a very high risk for Moses Itauma. And look, if he was to win that fight, that would boost his credibility massively, but at only 20 years old, a loss could possibly knock his credibility, especially because he's being built up to be this huge heavyweight star. Now, I feel that he should definitely have a step up from his last fight, but facing Usyk might be a whole different challenge. So there's a couple of different options for Itauma, and in my opinion, there's a couple of names that I think he has the chance to beat and that would definitely boost his credibility and make a big fight. Number one being Joseph Parker. I think Joseph Parker is also a skilled heavyweight and will definitely be a step up from Dillian Whyte, and I could see that one being a very good fight. Another option is Anthony Joshua. Now, Anthony Joshua is still a huge name despite his recent losses. Joshua is one of those names that people always come out and watch, regardless of who it is and regardless of the outcome. Unfortunately, I don't think that one's an option. If you guys don't know, Anthony Joshua and Moses Itauma share the same trainer in Ben Davison. So, due to that reason, I don't really see that fight happening. Another option is Tyson Fury. Now, Tyson Fury is a bigger fighter, but I don't think Tyson Fury will end up taking that fight. I think the only fight that Fury will be chasing is that Usyk trilogy. So that leaves us with one more option, and in my opinion, this one's a great option. Maybe even someone like Deontay Wilder, because although Deontay Wilder is heavily past his prime, he's a free agent and he's looking for a big fight. And let's not get it twisted, although his recent losses, he's also still a huge name. And I think that would be a great credible fight for Moses Itauma's career, and especially to build him up. Look, I'm really excited to see the future of Moses Itauma and see how good he can really get and the names he can beat, because after watching him, I'm confident that he can take on some of these big heavyweight names and beat them. As for the claim the next Mike Tyson, we'll have to wait and see about that one. Now, before he was chasing after being the youngest heavyweight of all time, beating Mike Tyson's record, but that one he wasn't able to beat. However, I'm hoping we'll still see big things from Moses Itauma over these next couple of months/years, and I'm kind of hoping that we get to see him fight again before the end of 2025. But who do you guys think should be his next fight? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload. Anyways, that'll be all from me. I'll catch you in the next one.